morning. I'd like to call this work session of the Southampton Town Board to order on this 8th day of July, 2021. Please rise if you're able and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Deputy Clerk Kim Otani, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Supervisor Schneiderman.
Here.
Councilwoman Lofstad.
Here.
Councilman Martell.
Here.
Councilman Bouvier.
Here.
Councilman Scavone.
Present.
All right, thank you. So one item that is not on the agenda, but I would like to start with is just a quick update on COVID matters and also on Tropical Storm Elsa. So we have Ryan Murphy, who is our Public Safety Director here. And Ryan, if you could bring us up to speed on both of those issues, that would be helpful.
Sure. Thanks, Supervisor. Good afternoon, Board. As far as COVID goes, things still are obviously much better than they were. We continue to see very low to, to zero almost numbers in terms of hospital increases and spread within the community. But we're, of course, monitoring the new, well, not so new at this point, but Delta variant. And we see that, other parts of the country and certainly the world are experiencing some increased spread with the Delta variant. So that's something that we're looking at as well and just keeping tabs on. We had a conversation with Suffolk County Office of Emergency Management earlier today. They're monitoring as well, but they have no immediate concerns, for our particular area. Also, we've seen that individuals who have been vaccinated, and again, this is both, locally and globally, have been able to contract COVID still, thankfully, because of their vaccinated status. Their symptoms have been, very minimal. Nothing, severe where people that have been vaccinated are ending up hospitalized. It seems to be a relatively quick recovery from, whatever they experienced with COVID. But it's still possible. So, we encourage people to continue to, monitor their own health conditions and be, personally responsible in how they, behave in large groups, in groups of settings where they don't know what the vaccination status is of different individuals. And certainly if you have, someone back home that has an immune-compromised condition, even if you've been vaccinated, this reiterates the fact that you could still potentially contract COVID, you could still bring it home, and even if that person's been vaccinated, if they are somebody that's a little bit more fragile, it could have a little bit more of an impact on them, although still the expectation is it wouldn't result in any kind of, hopefully hospitalization, and even if hospitalization, not to the level where they find themselves, intubated and in, an emergency status. So we're keeping track on it. Vaccine rollout continues. The site at Southampton College is still open. On Tuesdays and Wednesdays, in fact, they are open from 11 a.m. till 9:30 p.m. That was a change from their previous hours of operation to try and accommodate any needs that might exist for people in the community that work all day long but needed to or wanted to go and try and get vaccinated. They have extended hours on those days, opening a little bit later, staying open until 9:30 at night so that people could go after their workday. All other days of the week outside of Tuesday and Wednesday, they're open 8 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. still. So the site is still open and operational, although I think that the demand that the site is experiencing has gone down, significantly, and I wouldn't rule it outside of the realm of possibility that we see either some continued contracting of those days or hours of operation, in line with the demand as time goes on.
They were going to end that site initially by Memorial Day weekend.
Yes. Yes.
So they've kept it open much longer than I thought, which is great. It's so accessible, and so many people have been able to get vaccinated there.
Without a doubt.
Is that Pfizer? Or?
Pfizer.
That site's a Pfizer site, or at least it has been.
Yes,
Okay.
it is.
Okay. Outside of that, if you have any questions with regards to COVID, I'm happy to try and address them, but that's kind of where we stand right now in terms of an update.
In terms of outdoor dining at restaurants, we still have kept that relaxed, correct?
Yeah, so we're starting to pull that back just a little bit, and really more from our perspective on the fire marshals and enforcement side, we're pulling back on some of the outdoor, the sidewalk dining. And then as far as expansion into other outdoor spaces, not sidewalks, lawns, things like that, we're going to be noticing all the restaurants that they need to go back to their original footprints very soon. We're going to do that in such a way that allows them to have some time to come back to that footprint. And if they're looking for more of a permanent expansion into spaces that they have at their disposal, they can go to planning and make arrangements to expand their business site plan, okay? So we're going to do it in such a way that's understanding of the fact that people did experience hardships during COVID, although we also know that some people had one of their most successful years with the number of people that came out to our community last year. But we are starting to make some of the adjustments. We have to make some of these adjustments because the state emergency order has been suspended at this point in time. Any of our local emergency orders have been suspended at this point in time. A lot of the changes that we're making from our side have to do with exit passageways, exit corridors, if there was ever an emergency, not having things blocked up on a sidewalk space and having, room for people to move. So it doesn't preclude some of the restaurateurs from submitting to expand their site plan into some of the more grassy areas that they're occupying that aren't sidewalks, and we will work with them as best as possible to try and do that.
Now, is everything open? All the senior centers are they 100% yet?
They are all open. We're definitely doing congregate dining at all of them, and I believe we're back to adult daycare in some or all of the facilities at this
I
point.
think we're opening them up now to community groups. as
Correct.
well.
Correct.
All right, that's good.
And remember, on the restaurant topic, restaurants are back at 100%. So the other part of this consideration is there are occupancies and licenses and septic system issues, and if you have, 50 or 60 more tables worth of people than you would have had because now you're in a lawn area and you're at 100% indoors, we have to worry about some of those systems holding up under that additional stress.
I've gotten a number of questions from people about Zoom meetings for advisory types of groups. My understanding is that the governor has not reissued the exemption to the open meetings law, and it's not permitted anymore. So
Correct.
all these town boards have to have public meetings now. So in
Yes.
person.
Yep. In-person public meetings. I think we were going to continue to maintain some of our Zoom licenses for the possibility of, guest appearances if they had a speaker that,
Or
they wanted to
subcommittees
tune
if
into. Yes, or
planning
or
a meeting.
a smaller, not, sanctioned meeting necessarily of certain members or a subcommittee,
Right,
as you
like if the
indicated.
chair of a CAC wanted to get together with the vice chair to go over the agenda, that's acceptable.
Sure.
It's not a meeting. It's just a plenary, a moment to try to organize for a meeting, but it's not the actual meeting. So Zoom can be used in that regard, sir.
So I understood there's a slight thing that needs clarification, and that's whether or not the boards that obviously the boards that we appoint are quasi-government. That's understandable, but the boards that are not, that have membership that we don't appoint, that are just part of committees that advise us, there may be an issue on that. Talking with Kathleen, I understood that there may have been some, in the past, the ability to televise or to use video, and I don't know if that was being considered. I've heard both, and
So if it's
if that could be clarified, that would be.
Yeah, so if it's any of our CACs or any of our appointed boards that are tied to the town, they should all be meeting in person. If it's a civic group that meets on the side, they can conduct their meetings however they choose to conduct them if they're independent of us and not like a government, sanctioned organization, that they're just like it would be like an HOA meeting. If just a little community group for a homeowners association wanted to still conduct their meetings in a Zoom type format, they could do that. But any of the official town sanctioned, town appointed groups, they have to be doing in-person meetings at this point. The open meetings law suspension has been stopped from the state now.
So in the
Ryan-
case of a task force, and I think this is where it kind of came up, where this question came up, that aren't in fact appointed, It's like a holdover task force that that was appointed many years ago, but it's sort of become a quasi-advisory committee. It would apply to that type of committee
Yes.
as well.
Yeah.
They're performing a governmental
Yeah,
function.
because there's a lot of back and forth, there's just some confusion here, so I just wanted
There
to.
should be no confusion. They have to meet in public. They have to meet
In person.
in person.
So Ryan, if the public meeting is adjourned and is taking place in person, and there's a computer with 3 or 4 members on a Zoom in a hybrid fashion, I know we're kind of splitting hairs here, are they allowed to participate in the meeting, or can they just view the meeting?
Is there a quorum
We don't-
present? in public?
Right, saying that there's a quorum present, the meeting is happening in public, as per all the specifications, but some folks, for whatever reason, are on Zoom at the end of the table. I just had a meeting, a couple of weeks ago with a Zoom camera on, at the end of the table with 4 members.
At this point, they really should not be doing that. We don't have the ability to accommodate that for all our boards, and we need to be consistent with what we're doing in terms of our viewing and public accessibility. So that really shouldn't be happening at this point.
If it's
they
a
have a guest speaker,
non-member,
a non-member,
like,
right?
if a group is, let's say, meeting and an expert, they want to reach out to somebody, let's say in Massachusetts, who's an expert on, let's say, solid waste recycling, and that person wants to come in by video conference, we can say Zoom, that's okay. That's okay, as long as the members are present. It can be used in that fashion, just the way we put people on speakerphone sometimes.
As long as a quorum.
But participation in the meeting, we don't have that accommodation to allow that via Zoom unless the state gives it to us. So I know there's efforts at the state level to allow for that kind of thing, but they haven't passed legislation to
Yeah.
do it. So
And I would be really cautious about putting the Zoom option out there in those types of settings too, as described.
Right.
Because until the day of the meeting, if you've extended that as an option, you don't necessarily know how many people are going to show up. And if the only people present in the room are 2 or 3 board members and the rest of the membership is not present, you're not complying with the open meetings law at that point. So by creating the option and putting it outside of your control to know who's going to show up physically and who's going to show up remotely, you could be putting yourself in a position where your meeting can't really occur at that point. You don't know until the moment that it goes to happen.
So
Right.
members of an appointed board have to be in person. However, guests can come in by Zoom if we continue to allow that?
If there's an extenuating circumstance.
Oh,
It shouldn't be,
okay.
it should go back to business as usual,
Right.
the way it was
Right.
pre-pandemic.
Right.
If there's an extenuating circumstance, and obviously the board wants to accommodate that, I'm sure
Okay.
they have the ability, but
Okay.
it
But
should be.
every member of every
pre-pandemic.
appointed board needs to be there in
Yes.
person.
Yes.
Well, not just appointed, that's a,
Advisory, all our
Advisory.
boards.
yeah, that was the clarification. I think there's been a little confusion, because at least the feedback that I've gotten on that. So I'm assuming your office is going to then issue a letter to that effect to all the chairs of the advisory groups,
we
CSEs
have,
and
but
so forth?
I think the second one is going out.
Okay.
Yes.
Because there's
that's-
still a lot of questions that I'm fielding at least, and I don't really have an answer, so I appreciate this opportunity.
So the technology exists, and people are going to use it, they're going to want to do it, and we're going to have to tell them to turn off the computer? It just, I like the hybrid model. I think it really can help, with the participation in these meetings. I understand what you're saying. I was on the school board as well. We have had public meetings with people on the board in separate locations. Of course, all of that had to be noticed, and I'm sure that these notice requirements would kick in if we were going to do a hybrid model, which really gets cumbersome and whatnot. But I know there are folks who either travel or are infirm that still want to participate on these committees, and the technology's there to do so. So, something to think about.
Yeah, and hopefully, I think this might be a situation where, the law maybe just hasn't caught up with technology, and even post, COVID, and some of the lessons that we've learned, they may make changes in the future to allow for more of a hybrid style, open meetings participation
And if
that
there are
can be
extenuating
embraced.
circumstances,
Yeah,
obviously,
so,
they
so
can
we're
do that.
hosting a coastal storm preparedness meeting on the 28th of this month here in the town. And we're looking at the capabilities of hybrid for that with the other 10 townships, the county, the National Guard, and the National Weather Service. And really the reason we had to consider the hybrid components of it is because the federal government was still forbidding many of its employees to participate in person at meetings. And with the National Weather Service as a key component of coastal storm preparedness, we wanted to make sure that there was a mechanism by which we could have them participate in the meeting. That, just as an example of one of our extenuating circumstances that we would want to try and consider the use of that technology for.
So just, again, the clarification, Ryan, which is difficult, particularly with entities that are sort of quasi-government level. So I sit on a federal committee. They have not issued anything like that. So they will continue either with conference call, which they're calling Zoom now. So it's a Zoom call. They'll continue to have those meetings, even though there are appointed people or electeds like myself from this municipality that sit on those committees, but they're still holding, or at least still noticing us for those kinds of meetings.
Yeah, they're functioning a little bit differently with the way they're conducting meetings at the federal level still.
All right, we need to keep moving on, though. I'm sorry. Can you give us a little bit
Storm?
on Elsa?
Sure. So far, I will start off with, positive news, or at least a positive outlook, and say that we don't have any significant expectations that the tropical storm Elsa is going to have severe impacts on our area. That said, for the last couple of days, we've been providing department heads with updates. We've been taking some preparedness steps from the town level, making sure that, backup generation is fueled up and topped off, that vehicles are topped off ahead of this. Our two biggest concerns going into the storm, which is the same for most storms, are coastal erosion possibilities and power outages. We're expecting to see winds in the 30 to 40 mile per hour range. Really not for an extended period. This is a relatively fast-moving storm in the way that storms move. It was moving at about 14 miles per hour yesterday, but there's an expectation that that's going to speed up even as it continues to move on a trajectory towards us. That's a good thing. We don't want it to really linger and continue to drop rain and blow things around. But 30 to 40 mile per hour, possibly up to some 50 mile per hour gusts. Anywhere from 1 to 3 inches of rain is kind of what's expected for us.
That's about the 1 to 3 inches.
Yeah, it is, but we should be able to hold up okay under any of that. There's not an expectation of any really significant, flooding. They're
All
talking.
happening, what, 2 a.m. to noon tomorrow?
Earliest onset should be somewhere around 2 a.m.
Tonight.
Through till about noon tomorrow. We could start to see stuff a little bit before that. It could stick around a little bit after that. It's all going to depend on
What are we looking at?
what happens with
What's
the storm.
wave height?
Wave heights, we're looking at somewhere around 10 foot offshore, which could equate to about 6 foot crashing surf onshore.
Okay.
So we could see some erosion, but the angle and everything, we've been in contact with some of our folks that deal with these types of things. We don't have any serious concerns right now.
Which direction is the wind coming out of?
Winds, I believe, are southeast, I believe, sorry. Wind direction looks to be southeast by Friday morning to northwest by Friday evening. So the morning high tide is our biggest concern. If we can get through the morning high tide.
Right?
What's
It's a new moon.
Yes. Yeah, but the peak waves are going to coincide with some of the peak winds. So,
Hopefully.
hopefully it goes in our favor as far as things go.
Okay.
We've spoken to PSEG as well, obviously with power outage concerns. If, we've got heavy tree limbs that have a lot of leaves on them right now, ground gets saturated, things can start to tip if we add some winds to the ground saturation. They've indicated that they're going to have crews on standby in the Calverton area, so it should be easy enough for them to drop down to us. I was happy to hear that there was some East End, crews that were dedicated close enough to us. If everything was all going to be staged further west towards, say, Farmingdale, we would have made a request for some Make Safe to Clear crews to be embedded with our highway department to get out on the roadways, but
They've done a lot.
Calverton, they should be able to get to us fast
There's
enough.
been an awful lot of tree trimming that's been going on over the last few months, so hopefully that will help.
Yeah, tree trimming that's gone on. everything that got knocked down during Isaias as well, that, you know, that took a lot of tree limbs and dead trees out too. We all know that. We had power outages that lasted almost a week in the Quag and East Quag area. So hopefully that knocked a lot of the dead and weak stuff out of the vegetative, you know, field for us. So hopefully that's all had a positive impact, almost kind of the same way Irene came through and knocked a lot of things out, and Sandy probably would have been even worse had we not had a storm the year before that cleared a lot of the dead and weak stuff out too. So hopefully we're in decent shape and hold up pretty well.
Okay.
Something I'd like to put on the radar right now is I've been driving around taking a look at the Optimum wires that were just installed. And I'd invite all the members of the board to take a look at this. This is the new installation. A lot of the wrapping for the wires have come apart in the potato fields and high wind areas already. They're looping down. They're just generally
Yeah.
not a great job, in my opinion, in some places. But just now that I've let you all know, take a look at it. We're going to have a wind event. That's what I was thinking, how's this going to hold up during the hurricanes?
Sure.
I've got pictures and stuff, but
So, what
it's
they-
here now.
The practice, which I don't like, I call it bundling, rather than replacing the dead wire, they'll add additional wires.
Yeah.
And then they'll go around with a thin metal, silver cable, little wire, and they'll hold all of them together. So it gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
In many places, it has failed
So, yeah, but
immediately.
those wires do unravel, the ones
can-
that bundle them.
We can reach out and have a conversation with
Okay.
them about trying to clean up some of that too. Hopefully this storm doesn't have any big impact on it, but
Right.
we still have several months of Atlantic hurricane season in front of us. And if we can get them to straighten some of that out, that would be great.
I think in some cases, it's just cheaper and faster for them to, rather than fix and find the old problem, they run a new wire, and they just strap it to the other wires, and then it becomes a real visual problem. So, but, thank you, yeah, you can look into that.
Yeah, we'll reach out. for
Anything
sure.
else?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Got it.
As always.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to move on to the next item. We have a New York Marine Rescue Center Sea Turtle Sculpture Program. Danielle Perillo is Director of Administration and Development, and we also, Brian DeLuca is here. Sorry, blanked for a second. It's not on my program. Brian is here from the aquarium, right? And they will be presenting an idea. I was at I can't remember the meeting I was at, but they presented to a group of, I guess, was it East End
It
Supervisors?
was
and
East End
Mayors?
mayors and supervisors.
East
Yep.
End Supervisors and Mayors
Supervisors and mayors,
Association.
thank you. Yep. So we
And,
had a,
So I invited them to come here and present to you guys what they're looking to do, how to raise
Thank you.
awareness for our stranded marine mammals.
yeah. So essentially, I'm the director of the aquarium, and we house the rescue center in our facility. It's the hospital in there. This is the only New York State marine rescue operation for the entire state of New York. So this team goes out and does a rescue in the Hudson River, Staten Island, Montauk, Greenport to Queens. So essentially, we are on the ready to take care of any animals that are stranded and need of help, and then rehabilitation, and then eventually release. They've done a great job. We did a whole summary for the group at the time. We're really not going to get into a full summary of what they're doing and how they're doing it, but we welcome you at any time to come to our facility and do a tour of the operation. And I'm certain you'll be impressed at what they're doing in rescuing endangered sea turtles, really important here, and passing, hopefully, at some point, certain laws here in Suffolk County between balloons and so forth that, we see the tragic result of that.
We just passed it last week, so
Oh, the helium balloon ban?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did, that was
Yeah.
John's legislation, yeah, we,
Thank you, John.
it was a town as an effort. It
Yeah.
really was.
Yeah. Well, we
I
appreciate
appreciate
that.
your efforts, I've heard. a lot.
Yeah, I know.
I think we're the first. I don't know if anybody else has followed suit, but I suspect other communities will do it as
Yeah,
well.
that's fantastic.
So that has been a big problem for you, is the helium balloons?
It's one of the cause of deaths for endangered sea turtles, for certain. For
Is that
certain.
one of the larger causes?
I think there's a combination of boat strikes, and there's a combination of cold stun. So, in part, that's probably a majority is cold stun, and so the animals don't go down south early enough. Their GPS doesn't get them down there, and then we have storms and wind chills, and they're reptiles, and they get lethargic and they beach themselves, and that's the critical point. And we have citizen scientists that walk the beaches, and then the rescue team goes out, and it's we just never want the public to take them home and put them in the bathtub or put blankets into the car, because there is a process of bringing their temperature up, and the professionals and the experts need to address that. So the team does a very good job, and we try to get the message out to the public. With that said, the message that needs to get delivered, we found a unique way, similar to what New York's done with the cows and painting the cows. We've received, fortunate enough to get a grant from New York State, REDC, and there's some matching funds there required, and we're looking to get some fiberglass 4 to 5 foot sized turtles, maybe 2 different scales of them, one's sideways and one's look like it's swimming. And what we'd like to do is get these in and around towns around Long Island, waterfront towns, beachfront areas, and have them decorated by professional artists, local community, however the towns so choose to decorate them, and kind of get an awareness behind the unique art piece, the artisan decoration piece, and for us to get that message out there in all these waterfront towns and let the public know and go to the website and potentially understand what they should and shouldn't do when they come across a beach seal or a
I'm going to
major
take
turtle.
you up on that immediately. And sorry to interrupt you,
Yeah.
but we have established a Tyann Marine Education Center at Tyanna Beach. It's on the bay side. There's a great artist, Carolyn Monaco. She teaches art,
Wonderful.
wildlife art, fisheries, marine art, that kind of thing. So looking at this would be Carolyn's.
right up
Carolyn
around.
would love
Yeah.
to bring all our students
Yeah.
to do that. So
That's terrific. And,
please
so that's
contact me and I'll put-
be a great community project. It could be
Seems like
students, it
there's
could be
There's a lot
professionals.
of places.
There is that one sculpture that's already there. I think it's made out of recycled plastic.
Yeah, she
It's
does
like
a lot of work with
whale's
recycling.
tail. You know the one that when you
Yeah,
pull in?
yeah, that's the one that comes up right
Yeah.
as you
I think
go.
Cindy,
Yeah, I
did
thought
Cindy
about
Rowe
it.
do that one? I think Cindy Rowe does it called Upsculpt. She does some recycled stuff.
So, yeah, I thought the the Marine Education Center would be a great spot to put. You guys are looking for locations, and what happens, like a QRC code or
We would have a QR code there that would really link them back to the website and really give them more information about the rescue center and, their efforts, and, even information about what to do and what not to do when you come across a stranded.
So you provide the turtle sculpture, obviously free of charge, you install it?
Correct. So no. So we would provide it free of charge, and maybe even a small stipend for artists. But what we would ask from the towns is to do an installation, location, find a location, do an installation, and some type of maintenance on it, should it need some type of attention, as long as weeds aren't growing up around it and hiding it and so forth. So
Well,
we would ask.
Cornell, we do a partnership with Cornell at Tyanna, which is perfect. That would help you also, I believe. And we have our SPAT program that's there, as well as on the east side, we have SPAT programs and things like that. So I think there's more than enough opportunity to get people excited about it.
Yeah, that's great. So we're trying to, to reach out to certain waterfront towns for certain to install these things. So the ask, Jay, is essentially that you guys find a location, do an install for us. It might require a cement pedestal, for instance, so it gets secured. And then just, some general maintenance on it. And, hopefully the artists are doing it so it survives summers and winters. We don't expect it to come inside or something, and be stored and be managed and handled
How long?
thereafter.
I mean, I gotta ask all the dumb questions about, like, how long is it gonna be there? Are we committed to keeping it there for a period of time? Is there insurance, like, kids are gonna climb on this thing, might they get hurt, those kinds of things.
So it'll become the town's responsibility once the town takes it on. So, for the town to put it in a position that's not going to be climbed on, or, where kids can't fall and get hurt, yes, that becomes the town's responsibility. The duration of time is to be determined. If the town wants to keep it for an extended time, we're not looking to take them back.
It's up to us. So
It's up to you.
if we
We're not looking to
decide-
take them back.
If we decide we don't like it, we can give it back to you.
good luck with giving it back to them. We already rehabbed plenty of turtles, Jay. We don't need another one. No, so, look, to me, it's an ongoing art project. You take it back in, you do a little restoration, somebody, has a passion for it, and then, you redecorate it, and you bedazzle it, 5 years from now. And you can kind of keep renewing it, and, it can become an art project for seniors, an art project
Right,
for
yeah,
school.
We can have a contest, whatever, redecorate.
Exactly
every
right. So
year.
I think it can keep rejuvenating itself. You can move it to different locations.
What do they weigh typically?
They're fiberglass.
They're fiberglass, so they're relatively light.
So they would need to be anchored onto a cement pad, I think you were talking about.
I think so, yeah.
It's about 5 feet tall?
Yes.
Yeah, 4 to 5, yeah.
4 to 5.
Okay.
Do you have preferences where they're placed, either on the bay side or the ocean side?
Not necessarily at all, really. It's about getting the message out.
Right.
We're hoping to sprinkle these across
Population.
the island.
Perfect spot.
So, we would like it to be in a relatively popular area so a lot of people don't get to see the hospital. I think that's, part of the message I didn't relay to you guys, but when they come through the aquarium, there is a public side of the rescue facility and a few viewing windows of rehabilitated animals. But they can't go into the hospital, which is several thousand square feet. They can't go in because the animals that are sick there potentially can transfer any diseases to the healthy animals in the aquarium, the seals and the sea lions and the mammals. So the public can't really go through that facility. The only time they can is end of day, and they have to exit. They can't go back into the aquarium. Same with our staff. There's all quarantine procedures. So the public doesn't really get to see what goes on behind the scenes. There's a few viewing windows of laboratories and so forth. So, getting the message out is really the priority here for us, essentially, at the end of the day. And this was a unique way, by getting a grant, getting these things purchased through the grant, and a small stipend for artists, and get them out and about on our Long Island shores.
You might also, maybe you already have with the Peconic Estuary Program, because right now, we're in a phase with them to try to do exactly that, not specifically for turtles, but for the preservation of open space, our waterways, our wetlands, living shorelines, and that type of thing. So they are establishing signage and those kinds of.
Yeah, so they're working with us at the aquarium now, so.
Great.
We have an open
So
salt
Joyce,
marsh. And they have
Novak,
signage.
and all.
So we're working with them, they're putting the signage in. Yes.
Great.
Thank you for that.
So the Tiana Bay Marine Education Center, it seems like they're just the perfect spot for this. And there's a lot of room, I believe, there. So if the board is amenable to accepting one of these things, then I guess I'd have you guys work with John. We do some resolution to accept the donation. We should talk to our Parks Director, Kristen Doulos, make sure she doesn't have any concerns.
Sure.
And Cornell.
And perhaps our town engineer, who's gonna have to figure out how to anchor this. We obviously don't want it getting hit by cars or, blocking somebody's view while they're driving. We've got to find the right location for
Sure.
it. But I'm thinking very close to the Marine Education Center is probably perfect. We got a lot of school kids, a lot of young, people who go through that program.
Young painters.
Yeah.
And then, let John basically figure out who's gonna paint it. So it sounds like you have somebody.
I think it would be a class project. I think Carolyn would, that's how she approaches everything.
That's
So they
terrific.
do all,
They're like early illustration.
You said there might be some
know.
stipend for paint and
Yeah, for materials and so forth, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we can even assist, I have a close relationship with the director of East End Arts, so if you didn't have what you have in other towns, did Sag Harbor or West Hampton express an interest?
West Hampton Beach.
West Hampton Beach expressed an interest.
Oh, good.
So, we're gonna, hit a few towns across the island, all the way to Oceanside, essentially, is our objective here.
Is everybody okay with this?
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, I think it's very good.
I figured you'd have a receptive audience, so I'm glad you came, though. So what we'll do is, John, if you want to coordinate with John can introduce the resolution
Okay.
authorizing the acceptance of the sculpture.
Yeah, either I'm gonna get a really loud telephone call from Carolyn after this work session, but I don't. I
she's
know I
viewing?
won't. Yeah.
Did you want to add anything?
No, that's really it. So just not
Well,
only
we have
just
to talk to
about the
Kristen.
New York Marine Rescue Center, but what to do if the sea turtle does strand. A lot of times we're finding that people are walking the beach and they're thinking they're doing the good thing and putting the turtle back in the water, which is extremely dangerous for them as well. So really not just about the organization, but about how patrons can help and call us, and then we can provide immediate response and then rehab and then release those turtles again.
Yeah, it comes down to education, at the end of the day, and I just think they have a limited team of 3 to 5 people, so they are focusing on animal rescue and rehabilitation and releases, and they're not marketing, they're not doing that. And, I'm standing up here taking control of this program, but that's just because that's who I am. But, at the end of the day, John, you're going to work with her, and, I'm going to step aside, and, I helped initiate this grant and came up with the idea to really, to take this forward. But at the end of the day, it's really their thing, but it's about educating the public across the whole island.
Yeah, and I think in particular with, when we're finding marine life, and particularly turtles that are found that are wrapped up in plastic, have ingested balloons and other types of things, what a person should really do in that case. And I think for the most part, they're given a phone number to call, to bring somebody down to do that. But as you say, I think sometimes people may, in trying to do the right thing, do the wrong thing to
Sure.
to say that.
So I think, we're going to finalize, this is our first visit to a town with this proposal. We've reached out to a few, and we're starting to get the ball rolling. We'll pass by you what that plaque is going to look like with the barcode and maybe the phone number and the website, so there's just the right information there for people to reach out. One, learn about it. Yeah.
There's a brief sample on the 3rd page of the packet that I gave you as well.
Of,
About what that, and I apologize.
Oh, what the,
But that would be kind of about like the
Let's
plaque, so the QR code would go on.
Oh, I
there.
see, okay.
Because it is a New York State grant, it has to have the I Love New York logo on it as well as information
Okay.
about the organization.
I guess we decide to, do we get to decide whether we want the flat turtle or the upright turtle?
So,
Is that up to us, or
good
you-
question.
Yes.
Someone was asking me about that too. I like the upright turtle because I feel like it prevents people from sitting on it and getting hurt. As a mom, I just panic about all these things. So my thought was to do it upright. I can talk to the designer. We're working with someone in the Oakdale, Bohemia area to create them. So I can certainly look to do that as well, if there's a preference that the town has.
Yeah, because, it just occurred to me that, your real goal here is to obviously protect this animal from what happens on the ocean side. Sometimes we actually get turtles coming through the inlet, they get swept in, but it's rare, I think. I don't profess to know enough about it. But perhaps, I think to Councilman Scavoni's point, that the location of this is kind of critical for people to be able, who are going to the beach and walking on the South Shore, ocean beaches, or pass by those, something like that. So something matching, with Tiana to Palmquag, but we have a lot of sort of very narrow strip of land between our bays and our oceans in some parts of the town of Southampton. And how do you get enough people passing by this to be able to know what to do at the end of the day. So it brings out a whole other series of things that we've been talking about, that we, exactly that, what happens when you come across an animal tangled up in, from seabirds to turtles.
In terms of flat versus upright, I think the upright displays the art better. I would be concerned with the flat, like, if I were a kid, I'd be trying to sit up there and get my selfie taken on the flat one, riding the turtle. So I think it really it's gonna be looked at like a piece of playground equipment, and whereas I think the upright one, there'll be less attraction to climb upon it.
Understood, yep.
That's just my own personal preference.
No, I agree with that. I would want to sit on it too.
Yeah,
I agree, the upright one kind of draws you to it. I think that's the better choice.
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's a better opportunity for the artwork.
Yeah, absolutely. And these are, the samples that I gave you are just samples of a project that was done in Florida. And just to kind of showcase, the different designs that everyone did and how everything stands.
It's very cool. It's a great idea.
It is.
I like it. Everybody likes it, so.
Perfect.
Can I ask you on a completely unrelated thing?
Absolutely.
I was in Riverhead last night. I went to that little Turkish place, which I love, right on the waterfront. They're building next to the aquarium quite a bit. What is that?
They're apartments, market rate apartments.
Market rate apartment?
Yep.
Okay, it's not part of the aquarium?
No. Yeah, I think it's 28 apartments, market rate.
Okay,
Did you make your way towards the park at all, the Grangerville Park next to Peconic Paddler?
yeah.
On the other side.
Did you see this 14-foot seahorse that was lit at night? You didn't get a chance to,
I did not see it. I didn't get into Grangerville. I just sort of, I looked at the new affordable housing complex that was just built with the Peconic Brewery.
Yeah.
Just terrific.
Yeah, really great. Great
It's great.
setting.
And they were doing a tremendous amount of road work back there.
Yeah, they're
so
doing
I-
all the parking lots over
So it was kind of a
resurfacing.
little, and I was with my son, so no, I didn't walk all the way down.
Yeah, so the park we have an event called Art in the Park that I've been initiating in the town, and we.
I've been there on other occasions to see some of the very cool sculptures there.
Yeah. Yeah, so we just added a new piece that myself and another artist completed.
In the water or on the land?
We did two. We did one in the water, 38-foot submarine, and that's lit up at night, and then we did a 14-foot seahorse that's lit from the inside. with,
That's on the land, the
That's
seahorse?
on the land, yeah, right near the flag in the middle. It came out pretty neat, so we're just adding.
Yeah, next time I'm over there.
It's a cool piece.
How long are they going to be there?
They're permanent.
They're permanent? Good.
They're permanent structures in the park, and we do 4 shows a year in the evening, one each month. So the 17th is our next one. Yeah, excited about that.
While you're here, I have a question about turtles beaching themselves. Do we get more on the Peconic Bay side or the ocean side? I think it would be the ocean, and
Yeah,
I'm
it
just-
is the ocean.
but I know we do get them in Peconic Bay.
Yeah, I can send you actually a map. If anyone's ever interested, I can send you a map of kind of where they strand. Our rescue program director has that. But yeah, a little bit more on the ocean side,
And the Long Island Sound side,
this
too.
side, yes.
Right, right. Okay.
Yeah. So
Thanks.
they wander, you know. And then we just had 2 releases, right? Those are,
We just had 2 seal releases, and we have
Opt-in.
the next 2 Mondays, 2 turtle releases at Tiana.
and they getting tagged? Any of those turtles getting tagged?
And they're conservative.
Monday, the 19th, we're releasing tag turtles, yes.
Yeah. So
They
it-
can be satellite
They wanna
tracked.
Get tracked, and it's amazing. You see, even the seals just got released. You can see they're already off the coast, you know, already off of Greenport and, you know, heading north. And so it's interesting just to track them. And
Wow.
it's a good feeling. And, you know, schools that get involved too, that help raise some funds for those rescues and paying for the satellite tags, get to track it at school. And so they do a lot of good stuff, and we just want to help get that message out.
Oh, it's fine.
Did I say
Thank
that
you.
enough?
Yep, you got it.
I also wanted to say thanks. You guys are an active part of the honor flight.
Absolutely.
I've participated with my son 2 years ago. My father was a World War II veteran, and just love the program. Our 2 vets were fantastic men, Korean War veterans, and we're still friends with them today, 2 years later.
That's great. Cool. My father was a Korean War vet.
Yeah.
In World War II.
So just great. I mean, we've just befriended these guys. They invited us to our, their 80th birthday, and it's just really special. And I know you play a great role into getting people signed up for that. And we're happy to participate. Looking forward to the next one. I know it's been postponed because of COVID, but
Coming up in the fall, I believe.
Yeah.
We're trying to plan one.
yeah. So I'm gonna try to jump in on that again.
Great.
Anything else for us?
No, that's a lot, but please, reach out to me and we'll make the rounds and see what we can do.
Yep, my card is actually attached to the paperwork, but yes, I will reach out.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time greatly.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
Thanks for everything you're doing. It's,
Do you want your visual
it
aid
really is a
back?
labor of love.
If I can take them, or I can leave them if you guys want to have samples.
Somebody keep one?
Take one's enough. Keep one and then. God, whoa.
You're fine. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you for coming. And John will be your point person on that, Brian.
Excellent, thank you.
All right, so we're going to go to,
Failed.
yeah. We're going to go to reviewing the agenda for the meeting of July 13th, 2021. This will be next Tuesday, 1 PM here at Town Hall. I think, is hybrid over for this meeting? I'll find out. I don't know.
We
that-
just reviewed.
Yeah,
think
if
so.
it wasn't, it is now.
Yeah, I think I don't think we can do, we may have noticed it, but I don't think we can do hybrid anymore. So, no Brian.
hybrid type, Charles.
Right, so there'll be no hybrid. If you want to be heard, you have to come here. And, let's see, we do have a number of public hearings, 4 of them. There's a hearing on the acquisition of lands of Catco Group, Inc., In Riverside, there's a hearing to consider accepting grant of open space in connection with the subdivision map of Seatuck Cove Estates in Eastport. A public hearing to consider amending Town Code 330-109, fences, walls, accessory driveway structures, and clotheslines as it relates to the height of walls and slope of the grade immediately in front of the walls. And the last public hearing is to consider authorizing the alienation and discontinuance of approximately 2.9 acres of Community Preservation Fund parkland in furtherance of the Good Ground Road extension in exchange for the encumbrance and dedication of approximately 13.2 acres of property to be used as parkland within the hamlet of Hampton Bays. Okay, and then we have resolutions. So why don't we do a quick read here? If anybody has any questions, interrupt the reader, and we'll try to answer them. John, you want to start?
Yeah, Town Board Resolution ID 36707, co-sponsored with Councilman Scavone, to authorize the budget modification of the Community Development Block Grant Program for fiscal year 2019. Town Board Resolution ID 36868, co-sponsored with Councilman Martels, to authorize the purchase and installation fencing from Suffolk County contract with Residential Fencing Corporation. Town Board Resolution ID 3912, co-sponsored with Councilman Scavone, is to authorize the supervisor to sign a lease agreement on a town benefit unit located at 187 Merchants Path in Sagaponic.
Town Board resolution.
Hold on.
Sorry.
No problem. 36864 is authorize supervisor to sign an agreement with New York Power Authority for the installation of electric vehicle charging stations in Bridgehampton.
Town Board Resolution 36834, authorize the supervisor to sign DPP with Toshiba for copy machines from Eastern Suffolk BOCES contract.
Town Board Resolution ID 36941, authorize the Parks Director to enter into interim agreements for mobile ice cream concessions for 2021 summer and fall seasons at Good Ground Park. Please eliminate the beach.
What's that?
It says Good Ground Park Beach.
Oh,
Depends on how hard it rains tonight, I guess.
Kim, you got that? We want-
Got it.
Take the word beach off there. All right, 36917, authorize the supervisor to execute a contract extension with Contemporary Computer Services, Inc. for managed network services.
Town Board Resolution ID 36895, authorize the supervisor to execute a license agreement with Bridgehampton Village Improvement Society, BVIS, for BB Windmill.
36902, authorizes the supervisor to sign a 2021 agreement with KnowBe4 for the Information Technology Department.
Town Board Resolution ID 36913, authorize the supervisor to sign a contract, to sign a change order, work authorization with Quintel Contracting Corp. for Bay Avenue bulkhead replacement.
36962, and I meant to check with Jamie on this one, which I haven't yet, but it authorizes the supervisor to sign a community services grant agreement for the Shinnecock Indian Nation Housing Assistance Program. This is like a $20,000 grant to address some of the issues with substandard housing. I had wanted to make sure that, I know there was a large award, federal award, and if they had already gotten funding to do this very item through that federal award, that might not be necessary. So I just wanted Jamie to check that. But go ahead.
Town Board Resolution ID 36890, authorize the supervisor to sign contract amendment for Hampton Bays Beautification Association for the maintenance and upkeep of the Main Street Business District.
Town Board Resolution ID 36959, co-sponsored with Councilman Scavone, is to award and authorize the supervisor to sign a contract for demolition of 503 Noyak Road in North Sea.
What is that? What?
That's the Napa property.
That's,
No,
No.
Road. And we're not paying for that, the Napa one.
this was a CPF property that we needed to authorize the demolition of the building on it in North Sea.
Okay. I'm just not recalling which building it is.
Yeah, you can't really see it. That's probably why.
Okay.
It's hard to see from the property on the frontage.
Town Board Resolution ID 36849, award and authorize the supervisor to sign contract for Bay Avenue bulkhead replacement, East Quogue, New York, with South Shore Docks Incorporated.
Is this, I know we've done some of that bulkheading already. I guess this is the remaining portion?
Yeah, this is the new part we're putting on.
Okay. Go ahead, Jim.
Town Board Resolution ID 36928, co-sponsored with Councilwoman Lofstadt, to recall and amend 2021-257, declare items surplus and authorize disposal of vehicles.
36953 recalls and amends Resolution 2019 to include authorizing a supervisor to sign any and all documents in order to execute Environmental Facilities Corporation grant for Project 18667. And 18667 had to do with the extension of water mains.
Yeah,
into
on the
East
motion, I'd like
Quogue
to
area.
add it to that, if you guys co-sponsor.
Frank in my office had worked quite a bit on this, so I think we're getting, I thought it was around $1 million.
Well, it's a combination of EFC funding as well as CPF funding to do that. So some of it's water quality money and some of it's EFC money.
Okay. Yeah, so we're just modifying, the authorization to accept. Yes, for the grant, okay.
Yep.
All right.
And
Rick,
I'd like to be added as co-sponsor.
Kim, you got that?
Got it.
Thank you.
Okay, Town Board Resolution ID 36961, recall and amend Resolution 2021-639.
Town Board Resolution ID 36936, is a 2021 Notice to Bidders RFP preparation of Climate Action Plan, CAP, for the town of Southampton.
36866 is 2021 notice to bidders for Southampton Volunteer Ambulance Facility. Okay. 36921 is 2021 notice to bidders for Southampton Volunteer Ambulance Flashing Beacon. I guess that's being separately bid. 36904 amends the 2021 budget for various departments. 36910 amends the 2021 through 2025 capital budget for beach improvements. 36911 recalls and amends Town Board Resolution 2021-597 for the Windsor Hart project. So it's a minor amendment. Let me just explain this one. The clerk had suggested that the Hart itself, the Hart platform, sort of be surrounded, if I could use my, the area in front of me. If this circle is the Hart, Sunday felt that there should be a frame around it that would allow people during a wedding ceremony to stand. She felt that if it was just the Hart and the grass was growing and all the weed whacking around the edges of the Hart could hurt the structure. So creating this platform that would allow more people to stand does a few things. One, it obviously allows more people to participate in the wedding and protects the Hart, but also these bricks will be more like your standard bricks that you see typically engraved. It'll provide a much less expensive way for people who want to participate in the funding of it to buy a smaller brick as well. So it's going to create those opportunities. It does change a little bit of the price, so this modifies that so that I can get a deposit out to the company that's going to produce it. We're sort of pushing the date back. We originally hoped for October as the finish date. Now I'm actually looking at June of next year on Edie Windsor Day in New York State as the ribbon cutting. So, but just to fill you guys in on where that is. And we continue to accept donations if people want to purchase a heart as part of that central part of the sculpture. They can do that through the town's website. All right, so that's what that resolution is. Go ahead, John.
Town Board Resolution ID 36870 to appoint Amber Otto to the CAC West. Town Board Resolution ID 36929 is to reappoint Ann Algeri to the Conservation Board.
We didn't do that yet?
No, she was off the list, apparently. It's my mistake. I didn't catch it.
Okay. 36939 authorizes the town attorney to reimburse NYMER the deductible for 2 claims settled in July of 2021. 36898, resolution to authorize the settlement of a matter between Tarkin Bastigliali and the town of Southampton and Conscience Point Marina. The next one, 36940, adopts a negative declaration for purposes of secret in connection with authorizing the alienation and discontinuance of approximately 2.9 acres of Community Preservation Fund parkland in furtherance of the Good Ground Road extension in exchange for the encumbrance and dedication of approximately 13.28 acres of property to be used as parkland within the hamlet of Hampton Bays, town of Southampton. 36955, a local law authorizing the alienation and discontinuance of approximately 2.9 acres of Community Preservation Fund parkland in furtherance of the Good Ground Road extension in exchange for the encumbrance and dedication of approximately 13.28 acres of property to be used as parkland within the hamlet of Hampton Bays, town of Southampton. So that, we'd have to close the hearing. That will happen earlier that day, and then that will be eligible for a vote. Next one I have is 36957. This resolution directs submission of ballot proposition and abstract together with Spanish translation to the Suffolk County Board of Elections. So,
I'm sorry, what page are you on?
36.
36, so let me just read you, so that, should we put this on the ballot, we would be directing the Board of Elections to place it on the ballot in November, and the language, shall a local law entitled, "A Local Law Authorizing the Alienation and Discontinuance of Approximately 2.9 Acres of Community Preservation Farmland of Schuyley Preservation Fund parkland in furtherance of the Good Ground Road extension in exchange for the encumbrance and dedication of approximately 13.2 acres of property to be used as parkland within the hamlet of Hampton Bays, town of Southampton, be approved." So it's a simple yes, no vote. And that will be translated then into Spanish, and it'll appear, I don't know if it appears on the ballot in both languages, or whether you have to request the Spanish version of the ballot. I don't know the answer to that.
And between now and then, we are going to try to get more information out to the community so they can understand all the benefits or possible not benefits of the project and make their decisions.
No, absolutely. All right, John, you're next.
Town Board Resolution ID 36965, authorization of cost reimbursement waiver for the Hampton Bays Fire Department Parade on July 28th, 2021, from 6:30 to 9 p.m. Town Board Resolution ID 36963 is an authorization of cost reimbursement waiver for the Hampton Bays Fire Department Carnival from July 27th to August 1st, 2021. Town Board Resolution ID 36930, cost reimbursement waiver for the iTries Hampton Young at Heart Triathlon on July 17th, 2021, from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Town Board Resolution ID 366 386, resolution endorsing the declaration of a climate emergency in the town of Southampton.
All right, stop. Yeah, explain this one.
Yeah, this is related to the RFP that we had, I just read out before. We're looking to get the metrics that we need to meet our 2040 goal of zero emissions and CO2 emissions. So we are looking to get that RFP out so we can hire somebody to give us those metrics so we can actually see what we're doing and identify those areas that we need to work on in order to reduce our carbon emissions.
So
This
what-
is related to that in the sense that this is a resolution, it's like a memorializing resolution currently, and globally, there's about 1,800 municipalities and countries that are doing this. Hopefully, in my view, and Mike Lieberman's here, may be able to add more to it. It's my hope that by doing this, we're going to also avail ourselves of funding through the carbon emissions reduction acts that will be coming down to the federal government. Hopefully, some of that money will come to us, but it's our way of encouraging others to do the same to help us work regionally to reduce our carbon emissions.
So you had mentioned the goal.
I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Mike?
You summarized it quite well.
All right, thank you.
John, you had mentioned a 2040 goal of zero CO2 emissions. That's, the town board hasn't adopted. We adopted a goal to try to be 100% renewable energy community by, I think,
2025.
2025.
But we also adopted a 2040 goal of reducing our carbon emissions by 2040 to net neutral.
Through our sustainability plan.
Yeah.
it's in the 400 plus.
Yes.
So can you explain a little bit what that entails to reduce the carbon footprint, to be net neutral? No, go right over there.
Sure. So I didn't expect to speak about this today, but
Well, you popped in just at the right time.
absolutely. So essentially, we've recognized, as well as the state, that we're trying to reduce our carbon footprint because we're a coastal community, and we recognize that we see a lot of the effects of carbon in the atmosphere, whether it's through the impacting of the waterways around in our area, or it's sea level rise itself. So we want to be a part of that solution. So this resolution is specifically calling for the Climate Action Plan, or is this the?
This is this
This is declaring a climate
global
emergency.
resolution.
Okay.
Climate emergency.
So we see these two resolutions kind of paired well with one another, whereas resolution declaring a climate emergency along with several other municipalities in the region, followed by a secondary resolution which says that we seek to pursue an RFP for a climate action plan, that this climate action plan will help aid in our understanding of what these implementation items that are referenced in our sustainability plan, what kind of impact they have. Because often we struggle with, okay, well, we want to change the building code so that we're reducing our energy input by 10%. But what does that mean on a grand scale? Because we have these large goals of zero or carbon neutrality or renewable energy, but how do we get there if we're only reducing our energy through the built environment by 10%? Or if we are, how do we think about carbon sinks? Our CPF program, how has that benefited the community when it comes to sequestering carbon from the atmosphere?
So I understand a lot of the goals here. I'm a little bit thrown by the language.
Okay.
So typically when we declare a state of emergency, we are suspending local laws, we're doing all things necessary to protect the public. It sort of has its own place in municipal law, a local state of emergency. Declaring a state of emergency in the town of Southampton, a climate state of emergency, and I, as a scientist, I fully understand the global emergency related to, greenhouse gases and the warming of the planet and climate change and all of that. It's a resolution endorsing the declaration of a climate emergency in the town of Southampton. It just sounds like that the town supervisor is declaring an emergency. Is there a different way we could maybe phrase that to say, because we're not suspending any local laws that I'm aware of that's connected to this. We're not using that provision of the law, municipal law, to declare a state of emergency. This seems to be sending a message, almost like a memorializing resolution, to other bodies like the state Senate, state legislature, federal representatives, that we believe that drastic action is necessary. But it's not really declaring a local state of emergency. So, Christine, do you understand the issue on that?
Yeah, I understand it perfectly. I don't know, who
So-
worked, I'm assuming you worked with somebody in the law department on this, or?
Yeah, we did, and I think, I don't have a problem with that. The idea was to show us support, but you do have the authority to do that in some future point. We're not asking to give you those powers right now, and if that language has that reaction, I think we could change that to make that work properly. The idea here was to support the 1,800 other countries and municipalities that are doing similar things, because it would help us get to our goal. And our goal of 2040 is still in existence, and we have to find a way to get there, or we won't get to that goal without having the ability to access funds, particularly through the Biden administration and their priority in emissions problems, but also for our ability to actually measure and define what it is that we're actually able to do. What does a leaf blower, how much CO2 does it put out? Building a house, cars, all those things. So it's a regional approach, and we're encouraging our neighbors around us to also do the same, so that we can have these measurements on it, so that we know what to work on.
So-
Right now, we don't. Right
So the
now, we
re-
have sort of ideas, but we don't have a plan specifically laid out, and that was part of the RFP that we read before, is to help us get to that goal.
So the first resolve is the Southampton declares that a climate and ecological emergency threatens our town, region, state, nation, civilization, humanity, and the natural world. The second resolve is, by adopting this resolution, the town calls on Suffolk County legislature, state, Congress, president, and all governments and peoples worldwide to declare a climate emergency and initiate a climate mobilization to reverse global warming and the ecological crisis, and provide maximum protection, et cetera. And then the last resolve is that we forward copy of this certified
To those,
copy.
yeah.
So if we could sort of rework the language here.
Can we have that opportunity, because I have some language that I think might fit in, but
So I
wanna
think
go
we
through the
need to
whole
Sure, I
change
mean,
the
to
title.
make it
I think-
work so that everybody's comfortable, I see it more as a memorializing resolution as support.
Recognizing
So,
the urgency and
recognizing the
having to act. So I
urgency,
think we can do
and be
that.
able to send that message to federal lawmakers in particular, that will ultimately control the money that we're going to see in order to accomplish the goals that we want to do. So I know there was a lot of back and forth on this. Michael had worked on that. We'd made comments. It's been around, but if...
Are we in a hurry? I mean, could we pull it from the packet and reintroduce it? Or do you want to try to amend it?
If the board's okay, I think we could, I think it would be relatively easy to try
I think
and
it'd be
amend. I
quick.
just want to spend the
I
time
understand
going
your
through each of the
point.
resolves,
I-
because it's a
yeah,
valid
maybe do it as a
issue.
walk-on, and I
Or
don't know.
substitute, you can do a substitution on the day of, you can swap it out. I mean, I think it can stay on the agenda if the board is amenable to that, and we can work it through, and you can just substitute. it
Yeah, I mean,
out.
that had come about, that same conversation had happened, and that was worried that you might have that same reaction, so I kind of expected that, so I just wanted to...
I do as well. I looked at this yesterday for the first time, so I'd like to, research it a little bit more to see what kind of ramifications that
I mean,
it has.
it sounds like what Councilman Bouvier, what you're trying to achieve is to send a unified message to all the governments that we think this is a matter that needs to be taken
Seriously.
seriously, and calls for drastic actions to reverse climate change, which I don't have a problem with. So if we have, with sending that unified message, we certainly do our part locally, at least we try to address these issues.
Yeah, in fact, we're doing it now. That's the interesting part. We're doing all of this right now. This is just to codify this, but also to make sure that that we have a regional approach to doing this, because if we work in isolation, it's very hard to have those metrics really mean anything. And if we broaden the landscape to start to help other municipalities realize that they are contributing as we are. We made this bold goal.
I mean, I know there's a clock is ticking for planet Earth or humanity on this, but is this something that we could wait on to get it right? Which, my suggestion
I
would be to
think we can make
reintroduce
these
it.
changes fairly easily, and there is language. This isn't new language.
Because I would suggest pulling it, withdrawing it from the packet, and
I'm-
reintroducing it next cycle.
Well, I know our town attorney had
I just
something.
have a question. Is the endorsement of this, is that a precursor to opening funding windows? Like, do we need to endorse a declaration in order to be eligible for certain fundings or get a score on something? Because I know that in the past with these things, you required an endorsement of that language. It might be
Right.
language we cannot change. So that's why I just.
So at this time, I'm unaware if this is linked to
Okay,
any
all
current
right.
funding.
I guess that's more
That being said, we did choose similar language to other municipalities to kind of show that unison. And this is kind of a proactive approach rather than a reactive. If this was a month after Superstorm Sandy, the language in there would seem quite appropriate. Today it seems a little perhaps inflammatory, but we recognize as a region, we've been struggling with these issues for a long time.
I think with the supervisor, though, it's more than inflammatory. It's actually a term of art for his jurisdiction that he has, and it triggers automatically a certain amount of reaction from, it opens the gate for things that he's able to do legally. So it has like a legal potential ramification, but I think we could work it out.
Yeah, if you're comfortable with
and as I said before, that phrase also had the same reaction. So I was expecting to have this conversation and how to arrive at that goal without having to go to a work session. There is some urgency in my view, being as we've set this goal as well as the state of New York, as well as the federal government is going to set these goals that we're going to have with the Paris Accords and so forth, that we're going to rejoin and meet these goals, particularly as a coastal community. It's more probably somewhat more urgent to us because of the impacts that we're going to see and are starting to see. And I'd like to be in front, that we've taken a proactive action, that we've gotten the attention of those people that are going to start parsing out those monies to help us do the sustainable work that we need to do across the town of Southampton and hopefully attract those funds.
If it were indeed like a resolution in support of a particular UN resolution or the Paris Accord or something like that, I feel more comfortable with it. What I'm asking is, my preference would be for you to withdraw this from the packet so we don't have to do this wholesale substitution, introduce it next cycle, more of a memorializing resolution in that form, in support of, the various, federal, state governments taking action to address climate change. I think it's hard, Christine, in my mind, to leave it in the packet and then explain why we didn't support a resolution in this regard. I'd rather it not be in the packet in this form and being changed and substituted. I'd rather a clean resolution be
Well,
introduced.
Supervisor, I understand that your concerns are that this is giving you executive rights to do things, and we can certainly take that out fairly quickly. I don't expect that, if that's something you're reacting to, and we take your powers away from you, I'm more than happy to do that in this resolution.
So what I'm asking is for you to withdraw this in this form.
I'm not sure I want to
So if you want to
withdraw it.
leave it in there, then we're just going to have to do a substitute. So it'll stay in the package, and then you're going to substitute or amend it.
And I'm
on the
fine with
floor.
that, and I think we can get it language that will, satisfy your concerns and get there. But I do personally feel an urgency here with what's happening on the federal level and monies that are going to be coming our way.
You're in this
And,
process, so it's up
and
to-
we're hiring, there is a resolution in here to hire someone through an RFP to start doing those metrics, to start the measurements that we need to have in order to make these moves.
And
know what
I
to
have
spend
some
money.
concerns about that funding, and, I'm all for saving the planet and all that stuff. I think everybody is, but I said it before, but not at the cost of whole industries or people's livelihoods. And I sometimes worry that some of these things are so pinpointed on certain things that there's always the unintended consequences that we can't figure out. And I just, again, want to say, as I stated in the past, that I support things like this. This seems very, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know.
Well, this-
passionate. How about that?
To calm you, this is not a carbon tax. This is nothing like that. This is not industry targeted. The whole idea here is that there are monies that are coming forward, particularly to coastal communities, for sustainable projects. And that's the protection of our coastlines, our local industries, our fishing industries, those sorts of things as well. And that's what this money is intended to do as it comes down.
And I just saw it too.
Right, that's a totally
And
separate-
does it say that's in here?
No, this is just to send a message to our lawmakers who control that money spigot, is that, hey, we have something important that we need to do here as a coastal community, and please consider all of these things when you're starting to parse out the money and give money to these local communities such as ourselves. That's all. And I really looked at it as a memorializing resolution. I really did, that this was just, we support this, and here we are, and we need these funds.
So, John, sitting on the Sustainability Committee with you for the last year and a half, I mean, we're not declaring a state of emergency. We're acknowledging that there's a climate emergency, and we want to include that in our planning in the town of Southampton.
Yes.
That's the way I read it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, thank you, Rick.
It could be a resolution acknowledging a
That's why I don't think the language
global
is hard to
climate
change.
emergency and, committing, asking various governors to commit to addressing the global crisis.
I think if you research the term, you'll find that out immediately.
Yeah, so it's your resolution. I prefer it withdrawn and reintroduced, but if you want to leave it there and fix it,
I'd like to fix it, because I don't think there's that much to fix.
I think we could probably pull that off, and I'll
Mike,
work with Chris.
could you send a list of the 1,876, I think, municipalities that have adopted this?
I can certainly,
And I know they're international as well. I'd like to, see like what they did, if they've
What it is
received
they've
money
actually
from this,
adopted.
Supervisor, you.
we are-
Sorry, Tom, sorry.
declaring a state of emergency, climate emergency. What municipalities on Long Island and New York State
okay,
has done this as well.
I'll see what I can find.
Okay, so.
I just wanted to, are you comfortable with declaring a global emergency?
no, it's not my
Nothing.
role to declare a global emergency. We could acknowledge, I think, that a
That's-
global emergency,
Memorializing the urgency.
Exists.
The urgency that exists.
we could certainly, it could be a memorializing resolution in support of some UN resolution or something, or, a town board acknowledging that a global emergency exists and we need a coordinated effort among all jurisdictions around the world to address it.
Which is already happening in a way, so we're going to hopefully add our name to
In
that.
support of that, but we are not declaring the emergency
Got it,
locally or.
globally.
Well, look, I mean, I will come back to you with the changes, and, I want everyone to feel comfortable with that, but, I kind of knew that you would react
Yeah,
that
no, and
way
I don't want to
because-
vote against a resolution that is all about bringing everyone together to address climate change. I
Right.
believe very much that needs to
And I think
happen.
we all do, so let's get comfortable in a way that makes that happen. I think we
Okay.
can do that fairly quickly.
All right, appreciate that.
Because I think everybody here is all on the same page about this subject.
Save the planet.
All right, John, would you read the next?
Sure.
36915,
Page 41.
41.
Town Board Resolution ID 36915 is a release performance bond and accept maintenance bond in connection with the subdivision map of David's Path, Bridgehampton.
Town Board Resolution 36919, approval of 2021 junkyard permits. Town Board Resolution
Can
369.
I ask, I don't know if you know much about this, but I know we typically just renew these junkyard permits. I mean, they are eyesores, and I do get concerned about full compliance with the health department, just making sure that they're not leaking any, battery acid or transmission fluids and things like that. I'm hoping one day some of these junkyards convert to other uses that address community needs, affordable housing or whatever it might be. But we do have a lot of these junkyards, often in neighborhoods.
We could probably look at our code to require such things. These are inspected by the fire marshal and approved by the fire marshal, and not all the junkyards received approvals. So,
It's just this group, right, at the bottom?
yeah, this group did, in fact.
Mhm.
So, that's how that went.
Yeah.
Be glad to look at it. I agree. Town Board Resolution 36918 is the approval of the 2021 manufactured home and community licenses.
36771, 2021 part-time salaries. 36863 accepts resignation of a building permits examiner in land management. 36925 accepts resignation of a data entry operator in the town clerk's office. 36843 adjusts the annual salary of senior management analyst. Len, we're changing this person's role significantly to put him into he'll have several people that report to him. So he's going into taking on some additional tasks, but also taking on a supervisory role. And that is the reason why the additional money is being recommended by the Controller's Office. 36906 appoints Catherine Antos to Animal Control Officer 2 position in Public Safety. 36874 appoints Joanne Whelan Altenkirk to Senior Account Clerk position in the Justice Court. 36879 appoints Kara Back to Director of Housing and Community Services. And I'll just stop for a second on that one, just because Diana Weir, who's the current director, has been doing just a tremendous job, and this is her last week, and we're sad to see her go, but it's a well-earned retirement, and the board has selected Kara Back from our town attorney's office to fill her shoes as Director of Housing and Community Services. So we're excited to bring Kara into that position, who's been working very closely with Diana through the years. John?
Town Board Resolution ID 36923, a notice of public hearing on the use of additional special supplemental community development block grant COVID funds to be awarded to the town of Southampton through the Suffolk County Consortium.
36922, notice of public hearing to consider amending the Town of Southampton Community Preservation Project Plan, considering the acquisition of lands of Bideaway, Inc., and amends the CPF management and stewardship plan to include that property. That hearing would be August 10th at 1 o'clock.
This was land that Bideaway had sold to us? I don't recall. It's right in my backyard, so I'm a
All
little...
right, so Bideaway has 111 acres of land. It's a lot of land. There might be some Pine Barrens credits that have already been sold or transferred. There might be some development that remains as part of this land. Some of this may be core preservation area. It would bring it on from Bideaway control to town control.
Because my only question, and I may have it wrong, is that I'm not sure if this is in the municipal, the munitions study area or not.
I don't know. Those are good questions. We can
So
find
I'll
out.
ask Dave.
Find out through a public hearing process.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
it's a lot of property.
It is.
I do not believe that most of it is actually developable property. There might be Pine Barrens credits that are on it that could be moved to other properties. Part of it would just be taking over the management of the property. But I think some of the acres are eligible for additional development. So I think it's a combination here. We'll get more information.
Yeah, because it's saying here, CPF management and stewardship plan to include the property, also consider the acquisition of land from West Hampton shown as part of the Suffolk County tax map. And I'm assuming that's the 111 acres total? So, all right, that's just a
But I
question.
think this is not a conservation easement. I think this is a full acquisition. But we'll get more information. Lisa's obviously not here.
And it is part of the dwarf pine forest, which is
Yes.
the munitions cleanup.
Is it?
area.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what I was pretty sure
right
about.
there.
Yep. All right, 36924 is a notice of public hearing to consider amending the Town of Southampton Community Preservation Project Plan. Consider the acquisition of lands of the Lovelady Powell Revocable Trust and amend the CPF management and stewardship plan to include that property. And this is something that Councilman Schiavone has been working quite hard on. So,
Yes.
so we're going to have a hearing on that property, and I'm sure we're going to learn a lot more about that as well at that public
I'd like to
hearing.
co-sponsor.
That's up in North Haven. this,
It is.
Acquisition, and that is, you want to be a co-sponsor of the hearing notice?
Yes.
Kim, could you make
Yes.
that happen? And then this hearing is also August 10th at 1 PM. That's a Tuesday. All right, John, you're up next.
Okay, Town Board Resolution ID 36926, notice of public hearing to consider amending various provisions of the Southampton Town Code, including chapters 330 zoning, 325 wetlands, and 123 building construction, to remove notarization requirements on particular forms. So just a quick explanation, there are, in our process of trying to speed up the process, permitting process, there's just been noted and brought to our attention that there are some forms that have a requirement for notarization that isn't really necessary.
Anything to
And the
streamline
word
the process.
affidavit means it needs to be notarized.
Right.
Okay, got it. Sorry.
Yeah, affidavit implies it's a sworn statement. So
Right.
yeah, you'd have to.
It's really language to clean up and some of the forms to clean up from, but it helps our process by getting rid of that, because it's a burden for every step.
So now you're changing it basically to an attestation in a way, from an affidavit or sworn statement, okay.
Yeah.
It's still probably, it still could be a sworn statement without a notary, correct?
It could, but it's really on your honor system.
Yeah, but
Less.
under penalty of perjury, I say that this is true,
Yes.
right? You don't
can
have
word
to
it that
have.
way, or you can really word it any way you want.
Okay. Look, anything to streamline the process,
Yes, that's right.
without sacrificing the, scrutiny that these projects undergo.
And there's a list in the legislation that shows where those are.
Okay, John, you got one more?
Town Board Resolution ID 36836, accept a grant of open space in connection with the subdivision map of Sea Cove Estates in Eastport.
36677. This is, needs to be changed. I have a different version of it that I was handed. I don't know that the title is any different. So it's just the last resolve was changed and two more resolves were added to the resolution. You guys probably don't have it.
No.
So the last resolve becomes resolved, the Department of Land Management is hereby directed to file and publish the positive declaration pursuant to 6 NYCRR 6.712. Further resolved, the town clerk is hereby directed to distribute copies to all involved agencies as identified in Town Board Resolution 2021-435, and the last resolve, all interested agencies as identified by Town Board Resolution 2021-435 are hereby provided the following digital, I should say, link to review the EAF Part 2 and 3 on the town's website. Let me borrow a pen. Thank you. So let me read the resolution. It's issue positive declaration for the change of zone petition entitled Concern for Independent Living that requires a change from R20 to multifamily MF44 and an increase in residential density pursuant to 330-8 to enable 12 units per acre in order to construct a 60-unit supported housing development that is 100% affordable in the hamlet of Tuckahoe. So let me just explain what this is. So the planning board, and Michael, I don't know how familiar you are with this, but the planning board has recommended a pause deck on the concern for independent living. As you remember, we held a work session and we allowed them to file for a 60-unit affordable housing complex. We had some concerns about access. We didn't want it to go through either of the two neighborhoods. We had some other questions, but we did allow an application to be received. It's being now recommended that a environmental impact study be done on that proposal. I don't think personally that that's unexpected or out of line when you're doing, that many units on County Road 39. I would expect that you'd want to have a full vetting of all the possible adverse impacts and look at mitigating measures. So this would be, since we are lead agency on this, we would be making that positive declaration in this resolution. Michelangelo, do you have any information on this?
You summarized it quite well. We did meet with the planning board. The planning board suggested that this should be paused deck partially due to traffic. A lot of traffic counts were counted during COVID, and we now recognize that that's no longer accurate. So there are other concerns as well. So the planning board is making that recommendation.
The Quiog project, that's already in the middle of a pause deck, right?
That project I'm not as familiar with.
I don't think the application was submitted on that yet.
I could find that out for you.
Well, I think we had also, it got past the work session.
Yeah.
And we said, go ahead and make an application.
But I don't think they've
For
actually
100,
submitted anything.
104 units, I think was the numbers there.
And we elected to consider under certain.
We did elect to consider Quiog,
Right.
but
Yeah.
I'm not sure what point of the process they're at this time.
Yeah, well, that's certainly going to have a,
I believe so.
Pretty sure we
NEIS.
did.
Yeah, that's NPR or NRP.
NRP.
Yeah, I think we elect to consider them.
I think they're doing an EIS on that one. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure what part of the
we
process. I'd have
But
to double check.
We put some conditions on that elect to consider. So I don't think there's been an application
Yeah,
submitted.
that
may
one's,
be
I
wrong,
think,
but-
6 units per acre. This is more per acre.
It's 12 units per acre,
Yeah.
using 330-8.
Yeah. So I have the changes. Kim, do you want my copy here?
Sure.
Can I point out that in addition to these the resolves section, I added the L in front of Inc. to make it link?
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, and are there any other add-ons? Seeing none, are we all good to have the clerk publish the agenda?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're good to go. All right, so back, and we'll jump into
Thank you, Mike.
updates. Parade, 4th of July parade last weekend in the village, really well attended. It was interesting to, coming not out of a pandemic, but through a pandemic, but we're at a better point clearly because there were a lot of people in the village. I don't think I've seen that many people at the village 4th of July parade ever, personally. It was wall to wall. Really nice parade, beautiful day for a parade, and I'm glad I was able to be there.
My wife works at the farmer's market on Sunday and was approached by a lot of people saying, why isn't there a parade? Which was the 4th, so.
Yeah, it was done on the 5th.
Yeah.
So I'll just give you a couple other sort of random updates. I was, before this meeting, talking with the town controller, where we're starting to put pieces together for next year's budget best we can. We are getting some federal money, not as much as I thought, from that tranche of funding that is for local government. It's in the low $5 million range. It's still, it's not the 6 I thought we were getting, but there are a lot of strings attached in terms of how we can spend it. So at some point, we're going to have to go over some of the controller's suggestions and your ideas of how best to utilize this funding. We're thankful to the federal government for helping us. It will help offset some of our revenue losses that we experienced during COVID. There's some money that we can sort of target toward helping some of the businesses that were hurt as well. So it's a good thing, and we'll have to have some conversations. The controller's estimate on pension payments for next year, I'm a little bit concerned. I had expected a decrease in pension fund contributions, and we're seeing another increase, and I'm trying to better understand why. So I'm going to be doing a reach out to the state controller. They evaluate the portfolio on March 31st of each year. 2020, the stock market was like at a multi-year low, and so it led to a sort of an artificial estimation of the value of state pension fund holdings portfolio, and that triggered a unexpected increase in the contribution rate that we pay. So each employee, we pay a percentage of the salary on top of what they make into the pension fund. And so we got hit with like a $600,000 sudden increase in contribution. And there's a similar amount they're looking for next year. So I'm trying to better understand what happened. Maybe the controller is estimating a weaker performance in the future of the portfolio, or maybe people are living longer than they had in the past. So I'm trying to better understand why, when I was expecting it to go down and we'd have some budget relief, we're seeing just the opposite. So I'm working at it. It's relatively complex, but I'll try to keep you guys in the loop. And I might be asking some other supervisors to weigh in on my request to the controller for more information in that regard.
Does it look like the request is going to be higher than last year's number?
Yeah.
Higher than last year's high number?
Oh, jump?
Yeah.
The jump is similar.
Wow.
I was expecting it to go down.
Right.
So there's the police fund has a significant jump, and so does the general fund. Just off the top of my head, between the two, it's about $1 million more that we have to collect. It's a lot. I want to say 400,000 in the general fund and 600,000 more in the police fund. So I just need to understand why. It is what it is. This controller wants the pension fund, rightfully so, to be 100% funded moving forward. And so they collect based on their estimation. They're saying it's 95% funded, not 100% funded. Another issue I'm working on, I've had several requests for traffic safety projects, for sidewalks, bike lanes, those kinds of things. There's a request in Hampton Bays for a sidewalk along, I think is it Shinnecock Road? Where Bel Air is, that's Shinnecock.
To Foster.
It's heavily trodden. There's a lot of people who use it for pedestrian safety, to put a sidewalk there. We have a lot of people in the Sag Harbor, Noyak area asking for sidewalks leading to Long Beach. We have other requests for like emergency access roads from the police department to provide traffic safety. And I'm trying to figure out like how to deal with all this in the budget. So in my mind, I'm looking at some of the numbers and thinking that, and we haven't done this in a while, but maybe we would want to look at a traffic safety bond, possibly even put it on the ballot and let the public weigh in on doing a bond to help with some of these traffic safety things. Now, Of course, anything that goes on the ballot, we're running out of time for. We only have a few more weeks to place something on the ballot. So I just wanted to kind of make you guys aware that this is something I'm working on, and you may see a resolution asking that a bond be placed on the November ballot to provide some funding for traffic safety projects and let the public weigh in on it. What else Mecox. Mecox closed itself, and the trustees only got a one-day permit to dredge 400 feet, 390 feet, 10-foot wide. It helped alleviate the flooding, which is now almost right back to the same levels. It closed itself after a few days, and the big issue of water quality in Mecox has not yet been addressed. We have problems with very low dissolved oxygen. We have problems with very low salinity, and we have problems with blue-green algae levels. And you saw my letter I sent to the DEC raising these concerns, asking for them to approve an emergency permit for a wider cut to address the issue, allowing the ocean and the bay to exchange. This is how it's been managed for 400 years. And Mecox Bay is on the precipice of becoming a freshwater lake with very little oxygen that will likely kill a lot of the marine life. Now, the trustees are working really hard with the various agencies, the DEC, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and the Army Corps of Engineers, with the hope that they will get this permit, hopefully by Monday.
Jay, I'd like to add to some of the issues around Mecox
Well, let me
Bay.
just finish real quick, Tommy John. So they're hoping that by Monday, they will have this permit. I'm in frequent communication with Dr. Gobler, who is helping give me the numbers on the three triggers that I put into my letter, which were the dissolved oxygen, the salinity, and the blue-green algae pigment levels, which they have, right now, none of them have been crossed. Crossing any one of the three could lead to very quick, widespread death of marine life. Fish literally floating up in Mecox. The oyster population, which is the best right now anywhere on Long Island, the oyster harvest is the largest, as I understand it. The soft clams. If there is a mass die-off, you don't just get it back next year. This has been a population that has built up over centuries. So it would be catastrophic in my mind. And that's why in my letter I suggested to the DEC that the town would have few options, that we were not going to allow the catastrophic collapse of the marine ecology of Mecox Bay. But I remain hopeful that based on the communication that I'm getting from the trustees, that all these agencies understand the problem and are working as rapidly as they can to issue this permit. I'm also told by Scott Horowitz that all the information that has been requested has been provided to these agencies, because that's often the issue, is they're asking questions and they're not getting them answered. So right now, all I can say is I'm hopeful, but I wanted to let you guys know that in communicate with Dr. Gobler and paying very close attention to Mecox. These
Well, we've
thresholds.
discussed
I'm
this
sorry, I
a
got
lot.
Tommy John was first.
I understand that, but I just want to make the point to the public that it wasn't just you, it's been this whole board that's
Yes.
been in discussion about this.
No,
issue.
this is a team, I'm not trying to suggest anything. This is a team effort. I'm trying to keep you guys in the loop as to the water quality of Mecox and this impending problem if something doesn't happen soon. Councilman Scavone.
Yeah, I wanted to say that in addition to everything that you said about the quality of the marine life in Mecox Bay, that the farmland surrounding Mecox Bay is being stressed by the flooding situation. The cut, when it was opened, it lowered the pond by 2 inches, and then we got all the rain. And we got rain this week, and we're getting rain, of course, this Friday. I'm touring it tomorrow, and so it is affecting the, the agricultural production around Mecox Bay, in addition to the homeowners and the flooding of basements and whatnot. I hope that the Mecox management plan, which we really have adopted and funded, gets put in place. I know we're, looking for specific permits, but, we should probably be also working, when I say we, the town, the trustees, everybody should be working on the Mecox management plan to have this happen, have the cut open when it needs to be cut, when it needs to be drained and, whatnot. So, yeah,
Yeah, we have provided funding, as you know, through CPF.
I know it.
Almost 400,000.
I know.
Based on the
I know.
Mecox management plan, that's the basis for that funding, that it will fund them following the plan. I'm sorry, Councilman Bavia?
No, it is a lot of money, and it's been ongoing. We've been close to this critical mark, the mark that we weren't going to cross over 2 weeks ago. So, I'm a little disturbed to hear that the DEC is not following suit along the lines that, we'd had these discussions with them about. And I'm just a little mind-boggled by that it's now closed, which it was a prediction during those conversations, and it's come to happen. So,
Well, yeah, so the trustees, as you know, have been asking for a 10-year permit that would allow them to manage the cut according to the management plan.
Have they consistently been requesting that permit?
Yes, and for years, for at least 6 years or so, they've been waiting for this permit. So then they find themselves, since they can't do the routine maintenance, they end up in these emergency situations, and during the plover and lease turn window, the DEC is very hesitant about allowing the cut to happen during that window. It's preferable that you're not doing work this time of year. Had they been able to do the routine opening and closing the rest of the year, they would not be in this position, or likely not in this position. So by the DEC not issuing that long-term permit, they sort of have brought about this, and they're rightfully concerned about piping plovers, but we have given them all of the information from our monitoring program, that shows clearly that there are no plovers in this vicinity. 500 meters away is, I think, the closest. And now they're actually of the age where they can fly. They can move themselves about, so it's not really a threat to have the cut there. So I do think all agencies are going to act soon. But there's a clock ticking, and right now I think the number that was closest to the threshold was the salinity. I think the number there
dissolved oxygen, it was almost 4.
was almost 4.
Yeah.
What day was that? 'Cause
When we talked, it was
yeah, I know,
4.62.
it went up a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think 4.8 is the number for dissolved oxygen on a daily average. And it's above that. They're okay. I think some of the wind has created some turbidity that has helped oxygenate the water a little bit. But the salinity number is approaching the 5 threshold. It's, I think, in the lower 6s. And that's,
That's with all,
I was told that there were dead blue claw floating,
really?
yeah, that were once live, they're
I haven't,
full
that I
crabs.
haven't heard that
Oh,
yet.
I mean, it's anecdotal.
And, and I know Dr. Gold was concerned about the blue-green algae, which could spike, warm temperatures and the low oxygen and low salinity, it could spike. It can sort of catch up very quickly. So normally we get that reading once a week. I've asked him to provide it every other day, so he's working on that.
So the trustees are really the lead body that's requesting this, and had been requesting this for the past 10 years. So what's our role in this?
Well, the only role that I see
We'll do
for
whatever
us
we need to do.
is if those thresholds get crossed, we have to sort of be in this with the trustees to say, we have to assess what our actions need to be. I don't want to go in an open session like this. We have to obviously do what we need to do to avoid a catastrophic collapse of Mecox Bay. I'm hoping that the agencies recognize this and will give the permits that the trustees need. So we might have to consider emergency measures.
The dredging equipment's still out there in place?
No,
Oh.
but that's Chesterfield, and they could be there on Monday. They could be there on
I'm
Monday.
just wondering the lead time, and when we talked about this last, we said, oh, well, the equipment will be there, I think, in the hopes that DEC would have already made up their mind.
Equipment came, equipment left.
Well, there was an issue when you opened the cut that you put a lot of water into the cut edges, so you can't have heavy equipment there. So you have to let that drain a little bit and then bring that and put it on site. So the fact that it's gone, was the first I've heard, that it's gone means you've got that whole week cycle that you got to go through again,
Well,
even if you open the cut.
Well, we knew we had to wait about a week after the first cut till the water level dropped enough to expose the tidal flats.
For it to go.
So, it's expensive for these companies to leave the equipment there and not use them at other sites. So, I wasn't expecting equipment to stay there and wait, but,
Well, we
Now
were
they-
expecting the cut to be widened to start with the dredging, the opening of the dredging. That was the whole
Yeah.
point of that. We were trying to take advantage of that.
And in order to do that, they have to punch through the shoal,
Yeah.
the wide enough channel to
Widen,
get.
yeah.
they need to get the exchange, Ocean Bay Exchange, because that's where the oxygen and the colder water and the salinity comes from, right, from the ocean. So, anyway, I just wanted to make sure everybody's fully aware. It is, it is a alarming situation. But we all need to just pay attention to it. All right, other than that, no, you guys have updates?
I have one.
Go ahead, Julie.
So I told you a couple weeks ago about our Habitat for Humanity partnership at the North Sea Transfer Station, where we're collecting on Wednesdays 10 till 2 usable furniture and building supplies that Habitat then uses to build affordable housing. The first week, I think I reported that there was maybe 7 people that dropped off stuff, but a lot of interest. The next week, they filled their box truck. The week after that, they filled their box truck before 1 o'clock.
Wow.
And when I stopped in to drop off something on Wednesday, yesterday, they said it's going like gangbusters. So I want to thank everybody that's participated. Please continue to bring your usable stuff to Habitat. It's for a good cause, and it also keeps stuff out of our waste stream. Saves us money.
That sounds
So far,
like a
so
real
good.
success.
Yeah.
Good job with that. Rick, you got anything?
Yeah, we are trying to have our first in-person CAC meeting at the Senior Center in Hampton Bays, if we get the okay from the town. So next Thursday, the 15th, at 7 o'clock.
Good luck.
The Noyak CAC met for the first time since the pandemic and in the Noyak Schoolhouse, so that was good. They're very happy with the Sandland ruling that we won. Their issues really are pedestrian safety. Jay, you mentioned that earlier with the Long Beach to the farm stand area, which is quite treacherous, and of course the traffic problem that is really throughout the town. I went before the East Hampton Town Board yesterday, and at the East Hampton Town Board, they had a work session called Revisioning the East Hampton Airport, and I let them know that we're asking the Eastern Regional Helicopter Council to discontinue the November route, and if they choose to use the Sierra route, to fly significantly out into the ocean. And just to kind of add on to a presentation that we had made last week, East Hampton Airport is looking at 3 options with their airport, and I think it's germane to this board because of the air traffic and the proximity to the town of Southampton. They're looking at the status quo, keeping the airport the same, modified operations, which change in operations, probably eliminating commercial, and repurposing. That's what the East Hampton Town Board is looking at. That's going to be in the next couple months, years, whatever. And there are diversion studies that have been made from the East Hampton Alliance. These are studies that look at what happens if the East Hampton or any airport is closed. Where is that air traffic going to go? right? That's a diversion study. The East Hampton Alliance is putting one out in the next couple of days, weeks. And that is a group that is in favor of keeping the airport open. And then the town of East Hampton is also putting one out in, I don't know when it's going to be coming out, but I imagine in the next couple of months. And we had talked about doing something like that at this board as well. So I'd like to, consider that and put that, kind of on the table here as well, because these studies are expensive and they take, they take time. But if we need to have our own numbers on this, we may want to consider doing this now.
Would it make sense for us to hire a professional to analyze those two studies rather than do our own diversion study?
It may, if they're doing a lot of the legwork and they, they collected the data themselves, and, then we can evaluate that, sure.
Yeah.
I think
But that takes resources.
Yeah, I think it depends on the data too, because the last time we were here, you were saying you wanted to try to put up a bit of a firewall between the data that's collected in East Hampton and the data here for Gabreski. And there's merit to that. I feel the need to make sure that this is not being driven just by one group, but is driven regionally. That these are all issues that include our neighboring towns, Southold and Riverhead as well. East Hampton, obviously, Shelter Island, obviously, but in a minor way. But I think that's important to look at this broadly. And I know we'd spoken about it in Council Skivoni's now on this new committee that I hope, as we discussed at the last work session, that you can bring that forward. That the impact of what happens here at Gabreski as a result of what happens, and vice versa.
Right,
To make
and
these airports as
just to
important.
note, the diversion studies that I mentioned were from two different groups, and one is the town of East Hampton, and the other is a pro-airport, for lack of a better word, I don't know what to call them, they want to keep the airport the way it is.
Pro-industry.
And keep it growing the way it's growing.
Oh,
So-
you mean in terms of supporting the airport or?
They're friends
or
of,
not?
friends of the
Okay.
airport.
Friends of the airport.
Oh, I thought you meant industries.
Well, I think it's a combination of people, friends of the airport, industry, and,
Okay.
whatever. So, yeah, it may be, incumbent upon us to do our own.
It's, as somebody who used to chair the board that owned that airport, like, a lot of the decisions that seem to be made are with East Hampton in mind, right? They have changed the routes, volunteer routes, and all kinds of things to address the constituent concerns within East Hampton, who are all voters for the people who run the town, at the expense, in some cases, of people who don't vote for the officials in the town of East Hampton. And so it could be up in Noyak or North Sea, or even in North Fork, or even Hampton Bays.
We
And,
know.
and now they're considering closing an airport, which could have, again, new impacts in terms of traffic. If everybody's landing at Gabreski, there's going to be more noise in West Hampton. There's going to be more cars on the road as people go to pick up people in West Hampton, as people drive back from West Hampton.
Right, and it's
we need to, although we're not ultimately the decision makers, it's their airport, but what they decide will affect our community. So I think it's really important that you're there, Tommy John, and at least providing us information as to what they're considering. I'm surprised that that list that you provided I didn't hear the old proposals. They were talking about curfews, like shutting the airport down at a certain hour at night.
That was the economic feasibility study that they did. Those were the three options that they looked at, and that's where I got that. I am sure that they are looking at all their options with that, and we should be, at the table, nodding our heads, or whatever we're going to be doing, whatever the
Right.
position
Should
of
we
the
have
board is.
conversations
And-
with our neighbors, our electeds
In
in
East
East
Hampton?
Hampton?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
At least so
And your
that they're aware
communication
of
is,
our concerns, that the decisions that they make are going to impact
Right.
us. I guess my concern, and I'm not trying to slight East Hampton, they're great public officials, and they're doing what they need to do for their community.
I believe they're doing their due diligence on it.
Right. But they need to understand that those decisions may impact our community.
Right.
And that we certainly will hopefully they will take our concerns into consideration in making those decisions.
And our concerns should be based on empirical data, studies. This is, a position that I've been taking. And we've been evaluating the flight routes, to your point earlier, where are they actually flying? And we're seeing that they're flying over us. Not entirely, but, the eastern part of the town, 90%. The western part of the town, 39%. From East Hampton. And I don't want to focus on one airport, because I do agree with the regional approach to this, kind of air noise issue that we have. But they've opened up new parts of the town to their air routes, particularly in the western part of Southampton town. And that was not the case 10 years ago.
Right.
3 years ago, it was not the case.
We never had an impact from East Hampton Airport that I was aware of in Hampton Bays.
Right,
We sure have one now.
right. The Palmquag Pavilion is now a landmark for mayor. It kind of bugs me, that part, but,
Look, we make decisions that affect East Hampton.
mhm.
Certainly, if we add things that make traffic worse on County Road 39 or 27 or whatever it is, it's going to take longer for them to get out and back. Those people who summer in East Hampton, or their tourist economy gets affected. So, look, I do chair the East End Supervisors and Mayors Association, and we have discussed at times the airport in East Hampton. So there is some communication between the towns and villages, but maybe a special meeting of some sort with East Hampton officials and us to discuss the airport would make sense. A joint meeting. Tell us what you're up to,
Great idea.
I would support our own diversion study, though, rather than looking at their numbers, I think, because Gabreski's
Mm-hmm.
right in the crosshairs.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
And Montauk.
as I said last time, when you have a status that you have now, and you change one of those factors, you change everything, and the numbers are no longer meaningful. And if we're going to look at this regionally, I think we definitely need to see those changes as they are impacted by whatever we all try to agree to.
Should we have a professional look at the two diversion studies and tell us if we need our own study? It's expensive to do a study.
Well, it really depends on what happens in East Hampton right now, and Gabreski for that matter, as to, what kind of traffic ends up there. Are they going to close? Are they going to set hours? I think they have three options, is that correct?
Well, they studied three options in their economic feasibility study. They
So
have
is that
not,
what's in front of them?
they haven't put out what their options are. They're kind of
Okay,
keeping it
all
close
right.
to probably for good reason, because, this is a charged issue. It's an issue that they are going to be addressing in the coming months, or, whatever. They haven't even really indicated a time frame, so, we should be mindful of what's happening there and work with our colleagues over there, in East Hampton. They're reasonable.
So if we had those conditions, you could in fact do that in anticipation of a potential decision, or you could wait for a potential decision,
Yeah, I don't like to be caught
Waiting
off
is-
guard.
yeah, exactly.
And neither do I. And I think it's important for us to note what's happening now and, what the potential changes are, and if those changes could shift back or, whatever.
So with
situation is.
diversions, and I think the county would be interested in some ways too, because
Mhm.
it could shift a lot of traffic to Gabreski.
So we'll see.
I mean,
We don't
look,
have the answers now.
You have
and
two of you who want to do your own diversion studies, maybe we should try to cost out what it would.
I like the idea of looking at their studies and coming up with our conclusions. I mean, if they're willing, if they're going to do the legwork on this. Or maybe we could, call over to East Hampton and do,
If we could have somebody look at the methodology and assumptions
yeah.
that are in these two studies. First, it should be interesting to see if the two studies come up with very different conclusions
Right.
off the same data. It seems to me if you're going to do a diversion study, you have to talk to all the people who use the airport and find out what they would do if that airport wasn't available. And, what they say and what they actually would do might be two separate
And
things.
say, do you
too.
think both those studies didn't come up with the same answer?
There you go.
Yeah, we don't know how prejudiced those studies will be either, so.
Right, well,
Right.
exactly. We'll be looking at them,
And
and...
you don't know, like, if you have a house in, I don't know, Bridgehampton, let's just say, and you fly into East Hampton and you can't fly to East Hampton anymore, would you fly to Gabreski and take a limo or whatever? It's a lot of traffic between West Hampton and Bridgehampton. It's a long way. Maybe you'd go to Montauk, or maybe you'd get a seaplane, or, you know, or use a different helipad somewhere. Like, I don't know that the people who use the airport would even have thought, a lot of them probably would assume it's never going to close, and really haven't thought through. But if you own a $30 million property,
The village owns the
are you
Southampton.
going to say, I'm not
Yes, they do.
going there anymore, you know?
Yes, they do.
I wonder how interested they would be in doing a diversion study.
they
Well,
have a
the
lot-
Southampton
they can only-
helipad is a lot closer to Hampton Bays High School than it is to Southampton Village Hall. I mean, a lot
They
closer.
can only, you can't land,
So I don't know how interested, well, we'll
you
ask.
can only land, the helicopters land there and take off, right? They drop people, they don't stay. You'll never go by there and see a helicopter
Right.
parked there. It's basically, it's a drop-off, pickup kind of location. It's small, it's at the end of Meadow Lane.
And they're directed to go into Shinnecock Bay and either circle or land immediately and then take off. But that's
And that's
their
owned by the
route.
village, and I can't imagine that, you know, if it was constant helicopter traffic, they would probably be under so much pressure, they'd shut the whole thing down.
And then there's another impact on Gabreski
Or do
or
some
Montauk.
very, very serious limitations on it, but,
Maybe. I don't know if it's a zero-sum game. You know, like, if this happens, it'll all go to one place or the other. And that's something that I think, you know, we need to take a look at it. Rather than, our history has been, I believe, is that, well, perhaps previous boards, because of this concern, we haven't really put up a fight with East Hampton, and now we're getting the flights.
right.
I think that data is more than evident, and, you know, we're still continuing to look at it, and so now we have them. And
Yeah.
Southold and Riverhead does not, you know, so, and I don't wish the flights on them either, but, you know, that is what happened.
Yeah, the burden should certainly be shared.
Well, it's kind of worked out that way on a rotating basis, so this next letter that we're sending to eliminate the November line,
We'll see.
the November
Route.
route will, you know, will shift that dynamic too, so, you know, it's an interesting subject.
And our quality of life in the town to the southwest and southeast of Gabreski and to the south of Gabreski, it's significantly impacted. If you are in the chute coming out of East Hampton and you're in Sag Harbor, Noyak, North Sea area, it's all the time. And, you know, the southern route as well. And so those narrow bands where people live in the town of Southampton are getting hit quite hard. I've been there, you know, it's like one after the other. And they're coming in for a landing, and it's low. And, you know,
And you're
look,
hearing it.
one helicopter, I'm okay with. 3, I can deal with. You know, when it gets up to 14 or 17 in a Friday night, low, that's a quality of life issue. And we have places in the town that are experiencing that.
So, what do...
So we don't know what
I
we're doing.
appreciate
It's
you
information.
You know, and I totally appreciate you bringing it to our attention and, you know, being liaison to the two airport committees. I'm just not sure what our next move is. Do we, I mean, we could hire a consultant to help guide us, we can do that. Somebody who's an expert, maybe can pay even more attention than you can because of all your other, you know, responsibilities. You know,
Well,
maybe to put
let's
in-
find out, I'll find out when the East Hampton Town diversion study is going to come out, and the East Hampton Community Alliance diversion studies, if they're going to come out in the next month or 2 months, then we could probably take a look at those diversion studies and then study the studies, if you will, you know, to see what their methodology is, and to see, you know, what effects will happen to the town of Southampton. I think that's what we should do, right now.
just wait.
And continue to watch where the flights are, and to come up with some hard data.
And maybe have this meeting with the East Hampton Town Board, a joint meeting. Why don't you and I talk about that
Okay.
offline and see if it, if that's something we want to set up, a joint meeting. And we both have to notice it. Maybe we can do it in a location closer to East Hampton, like a midpoint between the two town halls.
At the Nathaniel Rogers House,
Yeah. At the East Hampton Airport.
at the East Hampton Airport, LTV.
LTV might be a good
Well, we'll see
location.
if they're on board with this. You go into those rooms, they're very crowded and tense, and, as you can imagine, people's lives are affected one way or the other. So I know that the East Hampton Town Board, I'm not speaking for them, but this is just my observation, is that they're very deliberate in what they are doing and thoughtful. So, we may or may not be part of their plan.
I think they would benefit, though, from understanding all of our concerns.
Yes.
LTV Studios might be a good place to do it. It's obviously much closer to them than to us, but it's right next to the airport. You guys can go see the airport if you haven't already been. We could see LTV Studios, where we have the rights now to use those studios for our residents, for productions. I think would be a good location personally. So
And
Tom,
we have been
you-
in contact, by the way, with Gabrisky Airport, and we did connect Noise report with Gabrisky Airport. It was not connected, so people can make noise complaints, and those complaints do go to Gabrisky. The director of Gabrisky Airport, Josh Smith, has indicated that they have voluntary noise abatement routes, and that they send letters to the pilots and companies on an annual basis. And if pilots or companies are in violation of these voluntary flight route, noise abatement routes, they get a letter sent to them, and they get talking to. But these are all voluntary routes, and it's based, the pilot determines what route they want
when they follow
to come
the-
into.
There's no validation of.
Our problem is when they actually follow the noise abatement routes. It puts them on the Hampton Bays.
Well, that's East Hampton. I'm talking about Gabrisky, is that
Oh,
they do
right.
have significant options to the north, northeast, and northwest,
Yes.
which are better.
Over the Pine
you know,
Barrens, sure.
yeah. As far as noise goes, so.
All right, well,
So
thank
that's
you. We'll
where that
follow
is.
up
All right.
with that. Any other updates?
No, that's probably.
That's
but-
enough. We have
yeah.
enough crises for one meeting. All right. John, did you go? Did you have anything else?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, so executive session, we have acquisitions to discuss. I don't know if there's any other confidential legal or personnel. I'm just having acquisitions on my list, so. All right, so I'll make a motion to end our regular work session and go into executive session to discuss land acquisitions.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.